Let's drill into the SURF grant issues and perhaps maybe some misconceptions that are not only held in the eyes of the community but well beyond.
Well, I think the first thing is that until the grant is approved, it's difficult to totally roll it out. So I think there probably is a general lack of information that many people feel when they hear about the SURF grant, and that's understandable. We've gradually, when I say we, I've not been a part of it, I've been an observer. We've been instituting services based upon an understanding and a level of comfort that the grant's going to be approved. And specifically, that would relate to the teams that are on the ground within the school system now. But I would hasten to add that this is a very significant undertaking with many levels of support and many different agencies as a part of it, including our own Youth and Family Service component here in Newtown, who will be in charge really of speaking to the mental health needs of the Newtown staff. We are going to be looking for an important position associated with a grant. And by the way, listen, for those of you watching who are ever going through a grant experience, you know you have to validate what you do, evaluate it, and sort of verify how the money is spent and the level of success of the goals that were stated in the grant. There will be a project director associated with this, and I personally think this is absolutely necessary because we need somebody who's here on a full-time basis to coordinate this mental health effort. And I think when that person is hired and here, they will help broaden the necessary communications. Just think of all the mental health providers in the region with whom we have to begin to interact and share with them the theories behind the treatment protocols that are being initiated or will be initiated, and a tremendous need for communication, articulation, and working with many entities. So that position is being posted now. When I came in, I asked that occur rather promptly. And we'll be embarking upon the hiring of a number of social workers. There's an assistant principal position that currently is at Sandy Hook that will be maintained under the grant, which we think is important, and some additional special ed support. Staff training. There's a summer program which would be funded for students at Sandy Hook because of a concern that some have experienced a learning deficit or a deficit in their learning related to less time in school than other schools, and frankly a more difficult, understandable response to the tragedy itself. So the responsibility I have is to, as the grant reaches the approval stage, is to really reach out to the community and help them understand what is in it. We're going to be involved in a very significant mental health effort over what should be a period of 4 years, and the need probably to follow these youngsters who are in first grade through 12th grade.
There are a massive amount of unknowns facing not just the community but more acutely the school system. Can you talk about some of the concerns or trepidations you have about the things we cannot identify as a community or as a school district today as we speak?
Well, they're far-ranging, John, and listen, when you're in a position of leadership, you're really supposed to talk about problems or opportunities, and I think in the end that's how I have to view them. There's multiple, and I don't want to say that they're all related to the tragedy that happened at Sandy Hook. Let's start with the fact that we have 7 administrative vacancies currently in the Newtown school system. That is unheard of. It's extraordinary. It has significant impact to an important constancy of purpose and continuity of leadership. But when you look around, the reasons are understandable. Newtown has to remember when we embark upon these searches that people are also interviewing us, and I'm speaking more specifically the superintendent search. they're reviewing. They'll Google the B. They'll see, well, what's been going on between the Board of Education and the Superintendent of Schools. What's the relationship I can expect to find as a superintendent if I come and work in Newtown. And a person like myself can hopefully put that in perspective and say over 20 years, I thought I was very fortunate to be employed as superintendent of schools, and it was a wonderful job, and I still feel that way about it. But I think the board and I both understand that over the next 6 months to a year, we have to work together in such a fashion that we make that obvious to the region and to the state, and that will be an important element of giving ourselves the opportunity to attract the best possible candidates. This discussion about the fate of the Sandy Hook School and what's going to happen, my own personal position is that we need to be made whole. We had 7 schools on December 13th. We should have 7 schools again. If at some time in the future we're fortunate enough that we have excess space, I'm quite confident, knowing the creativity in Newtown and the needs of other entities for space, that space could be used in a manner that it could be ultimately returned to the school system if and when needed, and it could also be of service to the town and help them not endure the cost of building additional buildings not related to the school system. Tonight I'm going to announce that we're instituting a budget freeze. There have been resources and expenses primarily related to December that the system and the town have shouldered, and we know it's not something that we're supposed to guard. We're supposed to guard against, and I don't recall. I can just say, in the 30 years I've been a superintendent, I've never really been a part of a negative balance at the end of the year, and don't plan on having that happen now. Well, I think one of the things I have to do is, when I say I'm a storyteller, it doesn't mean I'm a teller of misleading or false stories. I think it's just a format in which you provide information that makes it understandable to people, and I think part of the things you do is put things in context. So you try to help people understand that in the last 4 years, the average increase in the Board of Education has been less than 0.9%. I think many people might guess it's been 1.5% or 2%. Well, that's significantly different than what it's been. I don't know that people are cognizant of the fact that when you look at data over time on net current per pupil expenditure, that the Newtown school system almost consistently ranks, I think our current ranking is about 143 out of 169 towns. That puts us in the bottom 20%, and I think I can say with some comfort that it's almost always the case that we're in the top 20%, some years the top 15% or higher in the results we receive vis-a-vis standardized testing administered by the state, the CAPS test and the mastery test. And we understand that's not the be-all and end-all, but I've felt for many, many years that I could look the people in Newtown in the eye and say we're among the most cost-effective districts in the state of Connecticut. And when you have that context and you're looking to each year roll up your sleeves and take other things out of the budget, it becomes a challenge. Last year, all the maintenance projects that would normally be done to keep, and we're not talking about service contracts and changing filters, but we're talking about a new driveway or fixing some windows or replacing a few. They're more significant projects. That was zeroed out, and so this year money was put back in to restore it to its normal substantial level, and that became an increase. There's $78,000 in the budget because we were exempted from the mastery test. Now people could go back and want to revisit that decision, but the state law requires, based upon the new teacher evaluation program, that we have data from norm reference external tests upon which to judge our teachers and their performance. So we have to administer testing in September or mid-year and at the end of the year next year. So there are a lot of things that have come along that represent challenges.